Welcome in, along with Mike Renner. I'm Steve Palazzolo. Today discussing the defensive back class in the 2019 NFL Draft. Just an early look. We still have a ton of evaluating to do, but we want to just give an overview of the cornerbacks and the safeties and what we're looking at with this class. And Mike, the more the NFL keeps passing the ball, the more valuable these cornerbacks are. We were just talking off camera about, man, first rounders. These guys, you have to spend first round picks on cornerbacks if they could potentially be special.
Yeah, and there's been a fairly good track record, I think, over the recent years of first-round picks at cornerback. Marshawn Lattimore, Tre'Davious White, Marlon Humphrey. There's been a lot of talent go in the first round and turn into, these top 20 cornerbacks of late. So I think there's a handful of guys on this list again that will go in the first round, I think, and step in from day one, be huge upgrades for teams, and eventually be sort of in that top 20 mix of cornerbacks.
Denzel Ward, the latest last year, going number 4 overall to the Browns. Looks like it was the right pick. So let's get to this particular class. The guy who was our highest graded corner just kept creeping up the rankings as the season went on. Byron Murphy from Washington. He declared early. What do you see from him on tape?
He reminds me a lot of, actually, Denzel Ward, who you just mentioned. Number 1 graded corner this year. Fantastic athleticism in terms of being able to flip that hips and turn and run. He just seems like he's never off balance in his routes, never really gets shaken, and has fantastic speed to make up. He's not that sort of mold of the 6'2" press corner, but I think he still has the athleticism to play press man coverage and make up for the lack of size that a lot of teams covet nowadays.
Well, now, it was good because last year's NFL Draft, you saw Denzel Ward go in the first under 6 feet. You saw Jair Alexander go in the first round under 6 feet. I think they're just saying, look, we need guys that can stick with these shifty, good route running receivers. You don't need a 6'3" corner, but each scheme's a little bit different. The other guy I think that's in that similar style is DeAndre Baker from Georgia. He was our top graded corner for most of the season. I think he's got one of the best feels for just off coverage, zone coverage, and man coverage. When you talk about some of these guys are stronger in one than the other, I think Baker is a better all-around prospect.
Yeah, I think he's a little more physical as well than Murphy at the catch point. That sort of thing was one of the best forcing completion rates in the entire nation this past season and the season prior. So Baker, I know you love him. I'm maybe not as high on him. He's in that mix, though, for the number 1 corner for me.
All right, let's go to LSU because all the hype goes to Greedy Williams. And when you talk about press man corners, he's 6'2", he's physical, he can run down the field, gets lost at the catch point at times, but he's one of those guys that looks like he's definitely better in man versus zone. But his teammate Christian Fulton had a really good year as well. I know he caught your eye, he graded higher than Greedy Williams this year. How do you break down these two? Yeah,
Williams is one of the guys that those cover 3, the Seattle cover 3 teams are going to have right at the top of their list, because that's what you want in a press sort of system, is the guy who can not necessarily stick with a guy for maybe 4 seconds, but who can disrupt the routes at the line of scrimmage to allow your zone to develop. And you don't have to be able to stick with a guy all, like I said, for 4 seconds down the field in any sort of double move routes. You just have to disrupt it enough to where your pass rush can then get home, disrupt sort of offense. So he'll be coveted by those teams, and didn't have quite the year we were expecting this year, but still 58.1 passer rating allowed after allowing a 19.4 passer rating.
That's tough
season
to keep
prior.
Up, yeah.
Those are pretty good. Those are still pretty good numbers. But his teammate was the one came out of nowhere. So Christian Fulton, 2 years ago, cheated on a drug test, admitted to cheating on a drug test, got a year-long suspension, actually 2-year-long suspension that got reduced last offseason, comes back this year and actually outplays teammate Greedy Williams, at least in our grading system, had a catch rate allowed of 39.5% this past year. Is sort of the opposite, the guy we're talking about. He's more of the athletic type, the more with the makeup speed. So I think he's in the first round mix as well.
That's a different name that not everybody's talking about. A couple other names to talk about. Amani Oruwariye from Penn State. He's more of the bigger, long corner we're talking about from press coverage situations. Julian Love from Notre Dame had a fantastic season as well. Any preference on those types of players?
Actually, being a Notre Dame grad, obviously prefer Julian Love of these two, but just because he is not necessarily the most athletic, not the biggest, but he's consistently got the job done this past year, one of the highest graded in the entire nation, has just a knack for breaking up balls at the catch point, had one of the top 10 forcing completion rates in the entire country, and just did not get beaten on sort of like double moves down the field, rarely got beaten, was always around the ball. So Julian Love, I'd prefer out of those two.
Another name to watch is Michigan State cornerback Justin Lane, who's a former wide receiver. They actually used him at wide receiver a little bit last year, 6'2", pretty good ball skills, makes a ton of good plays in cover 2. So I immediately say, oh, you played cover 2? Got to go to the Colts. They play all cover 2, and the Texans, they play cover 2. But seriously, those zone teams could use a guy like Justin Lane, and the man coverage teams will like him too because of his length. Let's go to safety real quick. Deontay Thompson at Alabama. He's been sitting atop our safety boards pretty much for the entire year. He just declared for Alabama, so he's officially coming out early. Made a big splash early this year, just making plays all over the place.
Yeah, you can see the playmaking ability from day one when he came in this season after not, really being a starter a season ago, barely playing off the bench. So had some fantastic picks in terms of ranging sideline to sideline, has that ability, but he's far from perfect prospect. He got beat a handful of times over his head. Even in the national championship game, he had a handful of bad plays, so he's not perfect, but those raw tools are there, and only 1 year of starting, you'll forgive some mishaps on
the highlight reel play is certainly there from free safety, from the slot, and from playing in the box. A couple other names to note: Taylor Rapp from Washington. He's been a versatile player, played in the slot, played more of a traditional safety role. We were talking about him recently too and said, okay, maybe he's not special in any way, but just one of those solid all-around safeties.
Yeah, very sound. Only 2 missed tackles this past season, which is pretty absurd for a safety playing in space pretty much all the time. It has one of the highest missed tackle rates, usually traditionally safety does, of any position on the football field, and was also just a weapon in their blitzing game. You saw him being very physical in the box. I'm not sure, though, he's a deep safety sort of game changer that you'd be looking for in round 1, but like you mentioned, being safe is still good at safety.
And I'm always looking for a great free safety, and I see Nasir Adderley from Delaware, small school prospect, and you look at the ball skills he showed on tape playing both corner and playing safety. Love the ball skills and the range that he has showed. We don't have full grades on him, but just some of the high-end plays that you see, and you get to see him at the Senior Bowl against pretty good competition. That's really important for him.
Yeah, Senior Bowl is going to be huge for him because he played corner and safety there at Delaware in his time in college. The range and ball skills are off the charts for a safety. He looked like he was attacking the ball like a wide receiver at times and just could go sideline to sideline. I mean, he was getting to the ball on the sideline before and would have to wait for it to come down because he was there too quickly. So you see the traits, but like I said, we have no grades on him at this point.
So another guy to evaluate, a couple other guys to keep an eye on: Jaquan Johnson from Miami and Darnell Savage from Maryland. We're just scratching the surface in our evaluations of all of the defensive backs for the 2019 NFL Draft, so stick with us throughout draft season and look forward to our position rankings over the next couple months.